Britain's gender clinic, the Tavistock Centre, is being shut down after a scathing report saying that staff were almost pushing children, and wrongly, to change their gender. This is a developing scandal that could lead to many, many legal cases. And in Australia, just this week, 2 more cases that raise exactly the issue that Katherine Deves was trying to warn about. In the Sydney Morning Herald today, the case of a teenager, a woman, who is suing a psychiatrist that she claims wrongly agreed she was probably really a man, and she did not, this psychiatrist, discourage this young woman from first having her breast cut off and then later her womb removed. The woman, now 31, today identifies as a female again, but of course her body has been stripped of the ability to have children. And a few days ago in The Australian, Ollie Davies told that how when he was 26, he was suffering depression, anxiety, no self-esteem. He was talked into believing he was really female, and he took hormone therapy. He later realised he'd made a terrible mistake. He now has a partner, but is infertile from the hormones that he took. As Ollie Davies put it, he was the victim of a kind of fashion. He said, everyone I knew put trans people on a pedestal. It was fashionable. I knew it would be celebrated and promoted. At first, it was euphoric. I felt like coming out as trans was my coming home and the key to everything that was wrong in my life. Except it wasn't. And don't you get suspicious, by the way, of some of those parents who declare, even of kids as young as 3, they're trans. Makes them a bit famous. They always do it so publicly. Joining me is Katherine Deves. Katherine Deves, thank you so much for your time. Reading these stories in the past week, what did you think?
Well, firstly, good evening, Andrew. Thank you for having me on the show. I would first like to say that to Ms. Langadinas and Mr. Davies, that I completely commend them for their courage and bravery in coming forward with their stories. It was only a matter of time before Australian detransitioners were brave enough to come into the Australian media and say what had been done to them. But I find it absolutely heartbreaking that otherwise healthy young people who are in distress are being put on a medicalised pathway for which there is a remarkable paucity of evidence as to the efficacy in both the short and long term. And it should be unsurprising to anyone following this debate that there will be people seeking legal remedy and compensation.
I think I need to echo what you just said about those 2 people whose stories I featured that must have taken enormous courage to go public. Well, good on them, because it won't be easy to tell those stories at this stage. I mean, I think the tide is shifting, but wow, kudos to them. Now, these stories are indeed front page news, but during the election, which was just 3 months ago, this issue couldn't even be talked about, it seemed, or at least not by you. You were smashed. Why do you think that was?
I think maybe because I was one of the first to come to national prominence raising this issue. The mainstream Australian media has been absolutely shocking on this particular matter. There has been deafening radio silence. Their failure to report on the Tavistock, their failure to report on the fact that the UK, Finland, France are all backtracking on these medicalised pathways, that they're not covering the mounting evidence that is detailing all the harms that are coming to young people who go on to puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones and surgeries. And those who have a vested interest, whether it's because they are ideologues or they are medical health practitioners, their livelihoods, their reputations, they've staked on upholding this gender affirmation pathway, they are very interested in protecting their own interests. And it is these children and young people who are being sacrificed. So I think that state governments and medical insurers need to get their checkbooks ready because they've allowed this to happen.
Katherine Deves, thank you so much indeed for your time.